Welcome, everyone. We're going to wait a moment for the audience to come in. It takes a little while for Zoom to add people, and I'm glad we have a very large audience tonight, and we're delighted to be of service. So I think we can now begin. Welcome, everybody, to the Wilmot Institute's first WI Live event, a series of events that we are planning over the next weeks or possibly months in order to assist Baha'is and their friends to deal with the current crisis, primarily actually to give people something to think about, to provide them with some education, some ideas, but also good advice, we hope, as well. We want to remind everyone at the beginning that, of course, currently much of this country is in a partial lockdown with the restaurants closed, schools closed, some places more than others. And we want to remind everyone about the seriousness of the coronavirus outbreak in the world and the fact that it is continuing to spread. So we want everyone, of course, to be very careful and to take care of yourselves and to take care of your health and that of your loved ones, especially people over age 60, and even more so in the 70s and 80s. So please keep that in mind with everything you do in the next weeks and months. Also, we want to be sure that people are getting good medical advice. Be sure to go to reputable sites such as the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. Don't believe in things because you can say, I saw it on Facebook. There's a lot of misinformation out there. You can always check Snopes.com. They are frequently able to debug misinformation so as you don't spread it around. So that's also an important thing to remember. And of course, be sure to obey the laws and ordinances in your area where movement and such is concerned for the safety of everyone. Today, we will be benefiting from the advice of Vahid Masroor, Baha'i in San Diego, California, who has been a techno lover for all his life and knows much of the technology that can help knit us together in times like this. So he will be making a series of 3 webinars, tonight being the first one. Most likely, we will announce this formally, most likely on Saturday at, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which would be 11 a.m. Pacific Time. We will do the second webinar, and the third webinar most likely will be Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern or 5:30 p.m. Pacific. And these 3 webinars will cover a wide range of technological assistance that you can use for holding devotions, study circles, children's and youth gatherings, even virtual feasts, virtual holy day observances, if that seems to be necessary, as it already is in many parts of the country. So I should also add that, of course, everything that we do on WI Live is the opinion of those of us who are broadcasting tonight, answering questions. They are not official guidance from the National Spiritual Assembly or from the Universal House of Justice. So with all that mentioned, I'm now delighted to turn it over to Vahid Masroor, who will show us a few slides and give us a presentation about the use of technology. Thank you. And Vahid, thank you so much for offering this service to our audience tonight. We're very, very grateful for your contribution. Thank you very much for doing this, and we'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Rob, for the invitation to take part in the efforts to respond to the current conditions we are living under in the US and many parts of the world. I hope to contribute, possibly with the help of Boyd, some ideas that might be of help to people that are facing the conditions of being quarantined or trying to practice the social distanciation that has been recommended as one of the key elements of the fight against the coronavirus. I'll be sharing a few screens to facilitate the discussion. So Tonight, we will be focusing mostly on one key element of keeping our communities working the best they can. And the topic, therefore, is having meetings online. How do we have community meetings when we can't meet physically? So I hope that we'll be finding a few ideas useful to this concept of meetings that are not physical face-to-face, but rather are meetings that we are carrying out online. And we'll be discussing the parallels between a face-to-face meeting and what online means and what the difference and also the similitudes are. So the sequence we're going to be covering is starting a little bit with a quick reflection about what online tools mean for community life and the community practices we have in the Baha'i community. Then we will be looking at a few tools. We'll go in detail in the first tool, Zoom, which seems to work for a lot of people in the US and around the world. We will also be looking at what some requirements are for this setup to work, these online meetings to work. And then we'll be giving some recommendations of do's and don'ts of virtual meetings. So things that we need to be thoughtful of and careful of, and things we would rather avoid to have a good meeting, a good online meeting. And also we'll be looking at your questions. So throughout the presentation, feel free to add your questions, whether you're on Facebook, on YouTube, or in the Zoom webinar. You're welcome to share your questions and comments. Just so you know, we have already put online a quick summary of the main ideas we are sharing, and also we are making available the slides, so you don't need to write down everything you see on the slides, as long as you access the following address, bit.ly/WI community tech. So if you're going to write down only one thing tonight on a notepad, please write this down, this address, bit.ly/WI community tech. And through this link, you'll be able to access the handouts and the presentation, so that the slideshow, so that you can use it at your own discretion. And maybe that will be another source of question and comments. So that said, I'll repeat one last time. The address to access the handouts and the slideshow is bit.ly/WI community tech. All right, so we are faced with a little bit of a challenge. For the online meetings have been available for a number of years. At work, we probably have used online tools for many, many years. And many years, I mean probably around 10, depending on where you're located and how forward-thinking the company you work at is. And we've also used video conference tools, probably in the context of family gatherings and family meetings, where we want to share with people that are distant from us the possibility of a few images and exchanging conversations. But taking it to the community life might be a challenge for some. And so this is a good opportunity to actually think what kind of virtues we'll be developing when we are using these online meeting tools. Will we be developing patience? Will we be developing truthfulness? Will we be focusing on kindness, compassion even? So those are this new setting for our meetings, which is the online setting, is an opportunity to develop the virtues and to start also applying this posture of learning that the Universal House of Justice has been recommending we develop. And so some things might seem hard, some might seem unusual, and we need to implement new practices. So I hope this few virtues, kindness, truthfulness, dignity, and compassion will help us make the best of the available tools that we have online. Some friends might have concerns regarding security or privacy, and definitely your devices, whether they are telephones, smartphones, regular phones, and computers, don't really provide much in terms of privacy. Anytime you're on the internet, you are very probably being tracked by either private citizens with ill intentions or by governments which just want to know what you're doing. So this is the illusion of privacy, something that we probably have to leave once we are online. And that's the safest attitude I think that we can have, is just assume that whatever we are doing online will be tracked by people, whoever those people are. And using a video conference system also exposes the exchanges you have online. And this is, I think, a reality that we all need to be aware of. But that does not necessarily stop us from using the tools that will facilitate our community life. So with that warning in mind, let's get into how do we go about having meetings online. The first tool that has been in the press lately, and I would say is rightfully advertised all around the internet, is Zoom. So if you go to the website zoom.us, you will find the tool. It's a tool that is very practical to use. It runs on a number of different devices. By devices, I mean smartphones, laptop computers, tablets, and all sorts of computing devices that are modern, I would say, probably can run Zoom. So that's a tool that we propose as not necessarily the only tool that needs to be used, but definitely a tool that is accessible. And it has a great advantage that it's free. So it is very easy to use, and that makes it available and easy to use for as many people as possible. So how do you go about using Zoom? The first case scenario is you have received a Zoom invitation, so you want to join a Zoom meeting. So the way to join a Zoom meeting is simply clicking on the link you've received. So you'll probably receive an email or at least a message that says join here. And the link will look something like this: zoom.us/j/ a series of random numbers. So once you click on that link, usually the magic of technology will do the rest, meaning your browser or your device will offer to open or download some software that is needed to have the video conference. And once you have done that, you just follow through and click on the different options that are offered, and you will be in the meeting. So that's very simple to use, very easy to use. And that's the scenario where you are receiving a Zoom meeting invitation. So somebody has created a meeting for you. You just need to join the meeting. In the case of Zoom, usually the meetings are set within certain times. So let's say a meeting between 5 and 6 p.m. And all you need to do is to click on the link that you have received and follow through with sometimes downloading an app if you're on a phone, and the rest of the time just clicking through what the options your browser offers so that you can open the meeting and join it. So that's all you need to do. That's something that you can easily practice with a friend. And we'll show you the other parts of the using Zoom, which is going about creating meetings on Zoom. So creating meetings has 3 parts, and we will do a detailed demonstration on how to do it. But the first part is you need to sign up for an account. Anybody that has an email address can sign up for a free account. There's no need to use a credit card. There's no need to insert personal data other than your email address. It can be nice when you're more advanced in the use of Zoom to add a profile, add more information that can be helpful, but it's not necessary. Once you have an email address, you're set to sign up for Zoom, and you can directly start using it. So the next step is creating a meeting. So we will also show how to go about this. It's a few clicks we need to do, including selecting when we want to have the meeting, and a few more options that we'll go through. Once you have created a meeting on Zoom, what you will have, the result of that will be either a small piece of text that you can use to share, and that's the effective third step. So sharing the link to the persons that will be participating in the meeting. So whether it's a 19-day feast or a celebration or a devotional or any form of gathering, this is the last step, making sure that you are sharing the meeting that you have created, sharing the link to the persons you want to invite to the meeting. So these are the three steps. And next, I'd like to do a live demonstration of how that works. So
Vahid, quick question.
Yep.
Was what is its availability in the time of crisis? I think this is asking about Zoom.
Sure. So the availability of Zoom in a time of crisis is not guaranteed because it depends essentially on the internet infrastructure, meaning all the connections, all the cables that connect the internet and the servers, the computers where Zoom is hosted might have a dramatic failure. If you are facing an earthquake, you probably will have no internet, and you will have limited connectivity. You will not be, during an earthquake or right after an earthquake, I would not recommend at all trying to use video conference. Your probable best shot is using SMS or messages on your phone as a means of communication.
And the other
question?
The other question was, can you are the meeting options only needing a browser?
Okay, so that's depending on the device you're in. So if you're on a laptop, you can just download Zoom through your browser, and it can become an element of your browser. If you're on a phone, usually you have to download the Zoom app on your phone. I hope that's clear. And there are apps both for Android and for iOS for Apple. So usually any modern smartphone that would have video conference capabilities will have an app that you can download and use directly. All right, so to create an account, we're going to do this live. So on the browser, I will just type zoom.us. I hope that's visible. Maybe I can make it a little bit bigger.
We're still seeing the slide. Different screen.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so I'll do this again. I'll type zoom.us. And once I'm on the Zoom site, the Zoom website, I can click on sign up. And it requests an email address. So in this case, my email address will be this one here. And I will sign up. And so what Zoom does is it wants to verify if I am who I say I am. And so I'm going to go to my inbox and see if I'm receiving my email correctly. And this is where demos fall apart, usually. And I'm not receiving it. Just a second.
Joys of live webinars and demos.
Of course.
It'll show up here in 30 seconds or so.
Okay.
Are some browsers such in their application use of Zoom? I don't think so, but because basically Zoom is its own little app, so you're downloading the app on whatever device you're using, whether it be a desktop or a...
Actually, I checked that out, and Zoom says that Chrome is the best browser for Zoom.
All right. So this is the email I've received. It's an email from Zoom, and you can see on screen that it has a big blue button that says Activate Account. So I'm going to click on Activate Account, and then it asks for my name, which I'll provide, and a password, which has some requirements. So let's all right. Okay, so it's more complex than I would have expected, but okay. And I need to have a last name, that works. Okay, so now I have created my account, and I can invite other people, but I will skip this step. That's not necessary right now. And I can go to my account. So what we have done so far is sign up for Zoom.us. I provide an email. The Zoom sent me an email. I click on the big button that says activate. And once I'm there, I have already an account set up now with Zoom, and you can see my profile, but what I'm really interested in is meetings. So on the left side, on the left pane of the website, I can click on meetings, and I can simply schedule a meeting. So my meeting will be, let's say, devotional number 1. I don't really need to put a description, but let's say everybody is welcome. And then I can pick a date. So let's say I want to have this tomorrow. And let's say I wanted to have it, yeah, 6 p.m. sounds good. And the duration, right now I'm going to set it up as a 1-hour default time. Now, you will see that there's a warning on screen that says your Zoom Basic plan has a 40-minute time limit. Now, this is real. This is a warning that Zoom is giving us. However, we have tested this, and the team at the Women Institute has tested this extensively. And once the 40 minutes run out, what you can do is just rejoin immediately the same meeting. And actually, I would suggest that it might be a healthy practice to pause the meeting for a couple minutes, take a breather, maybe get water, have a bio break, and join back in the meeting immediately with the same link that will be shared. Now, the time zone, if you're meeting with friends in your locality, that doesn't matter. Usually it will be, you should just verify that it's showing the right time zone for where you're at. But if you are meeting with other friends, it's good to verify what time zone you're setting the meeting for, and the meeting will show the right times for your different friends in different areas. We will see that in a minute. And then you can generate a meeting ID. So you have 2 choices. Generate automatically means that it will create a number that stays the same every time you are setting a meeting. Or if you would rather have individual numbers for different meetings, I would recommend you use this other link, the personal meeting, where you can it will be a different number every time you meet. So
Vahid,
you make sure, yes?
do you mind just turning off your camera for a second, then it clears up and then come back on maybe?
All right.
It was just breaking up just a little bit.
Okay. How about now? Is that better?
Yeah,
Can you hear me better right now? Okay, great.
thanks.
It's probably an improvement for the participants to not to have my face anyway.
Oh, come on.
Uh, the reason why a personal meeting ID is better is that every time you are setting up different meetings, they will have different numbers. So this is why I would recommend using a different number, especially if you're having, let's say, a devotional meeting, then you're having fireside, then you're having feasts and different meetings. Giving them an individual number is probably better. Now, the next option you have is requiring a meeting password. So with Zoom, anybody that has the number for the meeting can join in. So this is what you have been doing when you've joined this meeting tonight. You have, with the link, all you needed was the number on the link and you can join directly this meeting. However, we could improve security by requiring a meeting password. And then we would have to write a specific password for people to know the password and type it in. That way you can avoid, let's say, persons that are randomly joining a meeting. You can make sure that only people that have the password can join the meeting. Otherwise, anybody that has the number can join the meeting. So if you want, let's say, heightened security or heightened privacy in your meeting, you would click on require meeting passwords. In my experience, it's not usual that people just walk into a meeting, but sometimes that happens. If you want to avoid that, then you want to require a meeting password. Then video for the host and the participants is simply indicating that you want everybody to be on video or have their webcams, their video cameras available to facilitate the conversation. And then there are options for audio. So the usual recommendation would be to have both. Telephone means that phones that are not smartphones, regular phones that can just dial into the meeting, and that can save costs for some friends that don't have access to Wi-Fi. They can just use their phone plan to make a phone call into the video conference. They will not have the benefit of the video, of course. However, they will still have the benefit of listening in the conversation and be able to talk to participate through their voice in the conversation. Then you have a few more options. I would suggest you enable joining before host. That means that people can join in even if you're late. They can still start the meeting without you. And you can also enable a waiting room. That's if you're interested in doing so. Recording the meeting can be an interesting option if you have a specially prepared meeting that you want to make sure that people can see and enjoy later. Then recording could be an option. However, for most meeting among friends, I would suggest completely avoiding recording because most of our devotionals and friendly gatherings don't need a recording. So you don't really need that. Once you have gone through the selection of the options you want for your meeting, you can save the meeting. So that's very important. The meeting has been created. Now you can save it. And the important information that comes up next is the time of the meeting. So we have the topic on top. So it's called Devotional 1, description, everybody's welcome. Then you have the time. So double check you're correct on the dates and on the time you want. You can connect this to your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar if you have one. It's not obligatory in any way, but if you have a Google Calendar, if you're on Gmail, it's very convenient. And the important number is the meeting ID. So we've discussed that this number is how people will join the meeting. And you can see that I did not choose to require the meeting password. That means anybody can walk into the meeting as long as they have the right number. So the join URL, the hyperlink that people will be using to join is this link right here. So to the right, you can see copy the invitation, and copy the invitation will generate this little bit of text. So you can copy this meeting invitation, and you can then paste it into an email and send this to any amount of friends that you want. So this is, I just did this. I copy pasted the text from the meeting. I can add a subject, invitation to devotional 1, and I can send it to all my friends so that they can benefit from the meeting, they can participate in the meeting. So and then of course I would click on send. So as a reminder, the steps we've taken were creating we signed up on Zoom, then we created a meeting, we clicked on save, and once we have done that, we reviewed the meeting and found a copy button, which took us to copy the meeting invitation. I pasted that into my email that I'm sending to my friends, and then I send it, and it's done. I can also, if I want to share it with more people through text or through WhatsApp or other chat options, I can also copy paste this text and send it to my friends directly. So this is how you use Zoom. And these are the key elements of creating a meeting, then sharing it with the friends. And once you're done with that, you have really all you need to have the meeting set up. So I'm going to turn back on the slide share now.
You can try
And
your
I don't know
camera
if there are
again
any
too.
questions. Yep. Do we have any questions?
Do the friends need for the LSA, our LSA?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Actually, it's a good idea to download the app before. It's not necessary, but let's say if you could connect to Zoom a quarter before the hour of the meeting, that will help your computer download the app and making sure that you are you have the app installed. You can also go to zoom.us and download the app directly so that it's already installed on your device, whether it's your laptop or your phone, your smartphone.
Kay's asking about the meeting ID number again. Can you use the same one for a series of meetings?
Yes, you can. And that's one thing you can do is use this a fixed number for a series of meetings, but you need to create the meetings. That's where the trick is, and I am not positive whether we could create a series of meetings. Let me double check that right away.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So you that you wanted to do it, and you could say how you want to have it for.
I'm double checking because I'm not sure we can do recurring. Oh yeah, you can do, there's an option I didn't go over, but there's recurring meetings as an option when you are setting up the event. So when you are creating the meeting, there's a small option that says recurring meeting. So you could have your devotional every Wednesday at 6 p.m. and you can set those details when you are creating the meeting. And that would have the same, that could use the same number, the same ID number.
Over in YouTube asks, get the meeting started.
So what you will do as a host is go into zoom.us with your account, and you will see on your account that you have a meeting set up. And once you you are ready to start the meeting, you will. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Live
so-
demo. No, I'm not.
No, so
Slides.
sorry about that. So let me show you where it's done. Here we are. Okay, so you've seen that I created devotional 1, and now you can see that when I go to meetings on Zoom, I see that I have created devotional 1, and to the right there's a button that says start. That's all. You click start, you will be starting to host the event. So you do that whenever the time has come for your meeting to start.
You can also click the start button at other times, usually, I'm pretty sure, and start it early if you have to. You might even be able to start it now for tomorrow and then stop it and then start it tomorrow as well. Zoom seems to be pretty flexible about that, but people would want to test it, experiment to make sure.
Yeah, so the logic is that once you've been assigned a meeting ID, this number here, what Zoom does is create this space for you to hold your meeting. So you can actually use it earlier or go later if you need to, and this meeting with this ID number will be available. Once the meeting has finished, I don't know for how long it remains open once you've closed it. But you can usually, as Rob just mentioned, open it earlier and use it earlier if needed. And so with that, I'll go back to my presentation. Are we on the live demo slide?
Yes, we do have
Okay.
other questions.
Please go ahead.
How do you end a recurring meeting? And I think the answer to that is you just simply click on leave meeting. Or maybe it's end meeting if you own it, if you're the one who created it.
Yes, and so I would invite the friends to experiment so they can create their own recurring meeting and then delete it on the zoom.us interface. There must be a button to stop and delete meetings that you're just experimenting with.
Another person's asked, how do other people share their screen and voice? You'll notice, of course, we've got everybody's voice and cameras turned off here because we simply can't have 106 people with dogs barking and sirens going. With smaller meetings, you can set it differently and people can turn their microphones and cameras on.
So actually, that's a great segue because I wanted to mention 3 of the special functions that most video conferences have, but in particular, Zoom has as well. So things you can do in Zoom include turning your microphone on and off. So once you are in Zoom, at the bottom left, you'll see an icon of a microphone, and you can click on this, and it will alternate between on and off. And so that's a very useful button. You can always use that to turn your microphone on and off. The button that is next to the microphone button is the camera. You can turn your video camera at any time in the video conference on and off. That does not mean that you have left the meeting. It just means that you have turned off your camera. You are still in the meeting. You are just not showing whatever the camera is showing. So this is right next to the microphone at the bottom left of your screen. And a third button that is interesting to experiment with is at the bottom center of your screen. You will find a sharing a screen button that will enable you to share what you have on screen. So that usually would be a PowerPoint presentation, or in this case, a Google Slides presentation. But this is something that most video conferences tool have and is very practical when you want to share something. Now, we have friends that have asked about how do I go about sharing a video from YouTube. So you can share your screen and get the YouTube video running. What will happen though is that the quality might be a little bit turned down by Zoom. And we're going to discuss right after this one another tool that is much better if your meeting is heavy on the side of using YouTube. We're going to see another tool that works better with YouTube right away. And we've already discussed the idea of the time limitation on Zoom. So if you are running over time and you want to remain beyond the 40 minutes that are free, what you can tell the friends is just connect right away again on the same meeting with the same number. And what should happen there is that everybody can connect right back, right immediately into the same meeting again. Are we clear on that? Are there questions?
Yeah, it's probably worth noting that Zoom will immediately kick you off. So suddenly you won't be in Zoom anymore. All you have to do is go to your link and click on the link again and go right back in. Several people noted that they can't see the microphone, camera, or share icons. And that's because Zoom has two different modes. There's meeting mode and there's webinar mode. And in meeting mode, you can see these things. Everybody in the meeting can turn on their microphones or turn them off, can share their screen or not. But we're in webinar mode because we have so many people, we can't have people turning their microphones on and off just to test it. So because we're in webinar mode, you can't see these things. But the icons that he has put here on the screen are quite clear, and you'll recognize them if you're in meeting mode. Let me see, what else do we have here? One person here says, we just had an assembly meeting via Zoom this weekend and it went great. 4 cameras, 8 people. Another person said, right now the buttons are at the top. Whoops, things just shifted on me. At the top, but you need to touch or click on the screen to I think he means make them visible somewhere else. Oh, make them appear. I'm not sure they're on the top for people in this particular meeting, but frequently they'll be at the top instead of the bottom if you're on full screen mode, I think.
Okay.
You only see the buttons when the meeting is set up for the participants to use cameras and microphones. That's correct. Yeah, I think we've answered those questions. Oh, the relog and after 40 minutes we've covered again. One person notes the button location may also depend on the device,
Yes.
which may also be true of smartphones and things.
Yes, I've spoken really about the situation when you're on a laptop computer or a desktop computer. I haven't discussed anything on smartphones. So in smartphones, you'll have to find, but you'll also have the possibility to turn your microphone on or off, and the camera as well. You can turn it on or off.
Yeah, Jose asks why it is that we can't see other people. Are we not in meeting mode? And the answer is no, we're in webinar mode here, because with this number of people, I've been in big meetings where people can turn their microphones on and off, and you hear sirens and you hear dogs and you hear people walking by and you hear phones ringing and all sorts of stuff. It's very distracting. So I think Vahid has comments about that in later on in the presentation. I think someone says, is it recognized as an official LSA meeting? Clarification, is it recognized as an official LSA meeting that we can take minutes and conduct business as if we were face to face in person? You know, I have no idea what the National Spiritual Assembly or the House of Justice has said on that. But near as I can tell, it's up to the LSA. You might want to write the National Center to ask that question.
Yes, you might. And also, I think it will be hard to find jurisprudence on Shoghi Effendi's writings about video conferencing, mostly because it didn't exist at the time. But yeah, in my imagination, the LSA can probably decide about that, or yeah, as you meant, send an inquiry to the National Assembly.
Yeah, someone just said the NSA is meeting on Zoom during the crisis, and I know that's true of the National Assembly of the United Kingdom as well. Someone just asked, there's a little tiny blinking red light in the upper left corner saying recording. Is that your recording or my recording? The answer is yes, that's our recording, indicating that you are indeed being recorded right now. Of course, if you haven't said anything and your cameras are off, there's nothing about you that's being recorded, just the presentation and the audio and video that's coming out of your screen right now.
And just to be clear, we are recording this meeting because we will be posting it to YouTube and making it available for people to look at it later. So that's our reason for recording this meeting. Otherwise, if we don't record it, what will happen is that only the people that were at this meeting were able to participate in it and benefit from it.
Canadian Baha'i says the National Assembly of Canada has encouraged LSAs to make use of such technologies like Zoom to continue to function in these times. So that's interesting to know. We haven't heard that in the United States, but in Canada, that was the suggestion of their National Spiritual Assembly, apparently.
Yeah, and
Is the chat being recorded? I don't know whether the chat box will be visible later on. It does not appear in the recording, as far as I know.
so when you do a recording, it always records the chat and downloads it to whoever is managing the meeting, the host of the meeting. So that is a way to be able to look at it. And sometimes important things are discussed in the chat. So it's useful to know that it's also recorded and made available. However, in the next webinar, we'll be discussing how to take proper minutes, which is different from just having a chat on a video conference.
And another question someone asked is what's the maximum number of participants in the free version of Zoom?
So if you go to zoom.us/pricing, you will have all the details. If I remember correctly, it's 100 persons. So it's quite large, especially most of the time, if you are having a large gathering, 100 participants mean 100 households with one computer device connected to Zoom per household. So that can support quite large groups. But today we were getting an email from a friend that was asking about 300 participants at the same time. I am not aware that there are free tools that support that larger group. So if you are running large groups, you will quickly run into limitations of free tools. You probably will have to start figuring out how to pay for larger meetings. That's something to consider, especially to the institutions.
Yeah. Comment here from Bill. Someone asked about video quality. That's the reason we have used Zoom. Its quality and robustness are unparalleled. We also have a paid subscription to it, and if you can afford $15 a month, I recommend it. Maybe the assembly can. Mm-hmm. And there's another comment that was farther up here. Let me find that. Yeah, one person just said, we have just had an LSA meeting with all 9 members with video on gallery view. Gallery view is when you can see everybody's cameras on the screen, which is really very nice. Mm-hmm. Found it very effective sharing the agenda and the documents on screen. That's the other nice thing about sharing the screen is the person taking the minutes can actually be typing and everybody can look at the typing that's going on and saying, well, no, let's not put it that way. Let's phrase it a different way. In fact, if you use a Google Doc and everybody has access to the Google Doc, you could have 4 people editing the Google Doc at the same time. We've actually been doing that in Wilmot Institute.
Yeah.
What other?
We'll be discussing that tomorrow. Yeah.
Yes.
In the next meeting.
Right. What other Baha'i functions and devotionals and LSAs do you recommend to run on Zoom, as this is a new dimension for most Baha'is?
Well, anytime people that are physically not together in different houses and they need to have a conversation, a video conference is a good tool. We are by now quite used to the idea of calling each other, making phone calls. And phone calls, of course, we know we've been using them for a little bit less than a century. We know they work. We know they're useful for human communication. But as we've just mentioned, video conferences adds the video. We can see people's faces, which is more, let's say, natural to us. We are used to seeing human faces when we're talking to people. And we've just also mentioned the idea of being able to share documents and discussing around documents. In this case, the document we're using is a slideshow, a presentation. And that can also be useful to have a consultation on. So this is why a video conference can be a superior tool to just a regular phone call.
Few other comments here. People keep typing things in here, and I'm shifting my things off the screen. One person recommended home visits this way.
Yes, that would work very well.
What is the difference between the chat button and the Q&A?
So again, Q&A is a function that is specific to webinars. So it's a formal way to register for the Q&A in the webinars functionality. In meetings, you don't have that. You don't need it.
What else do you get for a subscription?
So the number of people that can connect is the big thing. And depending on, again, if you go to zoom.us/pricing, if you look at the pricing, you will see a detailed explanation of all the functionalities. I invite you to look at it and do your own individual investigation of truth.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the 40-minute time limit.
Yes, that's a big plus immediately.
Would you send the invitation to people through WhatsApp?
So I just showed how you can copy paste the piece of text that comes out on the invitation, and you can just paste that into WhatsApp. At the very least, if you want to share just the hyperlink, that's all you really need to share. So you can just type, hey, let's have the devotion on Wednesday at 6, and here's the link. And you just share the link. That's really all people need to connect.
One person noted that Zoom is saying it's lifting the 40-minute meeting limit on free basic accounts for education. And they apparently done that in China and a few of the other countries which have been very badly hit by the coronavirus. Perhaps not the free ones we're talking about today, though. Why do read some questions or comments that I cannot see that are seemingly not in the chat or the question and answer? I don't know, Jose, because I'm looking at the chat right now. An email friend says the Northern Plains RBC has been using video conferencing for meetings with minutes recorded because of the distance and expense of traveling. And the person says, my daughter in Seattle is doing a children's class using Zoom, which is fantastic. It's also great, by the way, for talking to grandpa. If you can get grandpa to learn how to use Zoom, we did that with grandpa the other day. Currently, telephone-only connections are not available on the free account.
That's not correct. So there are ways, even with the free accounts, there are dial-in options. Dial-in means people can write a special number, call a special number on their regular phone, not a smartphone, but also a smartphone. But on a regular phone, you can just dial in. So there's a number that is generated, a phone number with a code, and people can call into the Zoom call. That's part of the free options. People can dial in. Apparently, with the more expensive options, Zoom can also call people that are part of the meeting. That's a more advanced function. I haven't tried it, and I would suggest we don't cover it. But definitely, with the free version, people can dial into the video conference once it's been set.
Can the participants be located internationally?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one great thing about the internet.
The Wilmette Institute's developing a new website, and we have meetings of 8 people, and they're located in British Columbia, California, London, England, Indiana, South Carolina, and sometimes Australia. The biggest problem is time zones.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Someone asked a question, Rondell's question about introducing music. I didn't notice that question. But music is an interesting problem, actually. Someone asked this question, I think, by email to us.
Yes.
Our experience with Wilmette Institute is if someone is, for example, singing and playing guitar, if they're not right next to the microphone, the quality is quite poor. But if you have a good quality microphone that you can attach to your computer, that you can get close to the singers, the quality is much better. But even then, I think you would have to do some testing locally to see what you can actually get out of your microphones, what quality music you'll get, because it can be quite disappointing, is my impression so far.
Yes.
And then the suggestion is that we should probably move on to the next topic.
Let's do that. Glad you asked. So we've discussed Zoom, and I wanted to introduce a second tool that is also quite interesting. It's called Jitsi, Jitsi, and there's a tool called, Jitsi is a tool for video conference, and in particular, there's one web link you can use called meet.g.c. that is very simple to use and gives you a very good quality video conference. it requires 0 to very little software. You can, of course, download an app if you want. And you can also add it to your Chrome browser or your browser if you want, but it's not necessary. And it runs very well. So especially if you're not satisfied with Zoom, I would invite you to try Jitsi through the link mit.jit.c, because it's a tool that has the same functionality as Zoom, but is free, is open source, so it has some pluses. And one of the particularly interesting things that Jitsi does is actually to facilitate YouTube videos to be shared. So if you have a recording of a particular piece of music or a particular video you would like to share with the participants in the online meeting, then Jitsi is a very good option because it will directly share the video to each individual user, so they don't go through the computer of the host of the meeting. The video is directly distributed to all participants. So I'd invite you to try Jitsi. It's I would say it's a little bit more lightweight, easy, not necessarily easier to use, but it's very simple to use at least. I would invite you to test it out. Just go to the link mit.jit.c and try it out for yourselves. There's another interesting function it has is that it shows how much time each participant talked. So especially if you're having an assembly meeting, you might look at how the tool works for your assembly. That can be something interesting to look at. Again, we don't have time to go into details right now, but I invite you to look at this second tool. And I'm going to just discuss briefly two more tools. Let's say more mature participants that have been online for some time are familiar with Skype. Skype is free. It's available for a wide variety of devices, laptop computers, phones, etc. It works very well, and in my experience, it works very well for few users. Let's say if you have less than 10 participants, Skype is probably a good choice, and it's completely free. You can buy Skype credits if you want to make long-distance phone calls to landlines, but it's not necessary, and you can make video and internet calls through Skype to other Skype users for free. So that's an option that's worth considering and trying out. And another good option that has worked very well for a number of years and that I use very regularly is Google Hangouts. The catch with Google Hangouts, however, is that everyone that participates in the meeting needs to have a Gmail account. So if the friends you are meeting with all have Gmail accounts, Google Hangouts is free and will allow you to have a good number of participants as well. Not 100, I don't think even 50, but at least 25 will easily get online, and that's a good free option as well that works as long as everyone has a Gmail account. So those are 3 more tools. I've mentioned Jitsi, Skype, and Google Hangouts that I invite you to check out if Zoom doesn't do it for you. Do we have questions right now?
Not from that. We have 2 people who have raised their hands, and
Okay.
I don't know quite what we do about that, because I think the people should probably use the chat box. They should be able to find the chat box on their screen, click on it, and type their questions there. I think otherwise we have to turn on their cameras and microphones, and I'm a little hesitant to do that because it's too hard to find people's cameras and microphones with 106 people in the system.
Okay, so I'll just follow through. Please, if you have questions, use either the Q&A button or the chat to share your questions. Just to be clear, there are many other tools for video conferencing. We're just highlighting the ones that we have found to be more useful and easy to use, and also that are free. So all the tools we have presented right now have no cost. You can use them for free. And there are a few conditions that each tool has in terms of use, but Those are should be the minimum common denominator for most of the friends if they want to connect. And we've mentioned that in the case of Zoom, even friends that don't have smartphones or Wi-Fi can still dial into calls. So that makes it a tool that is very flexible for probably all the friends that need to connect to the call. Now, it's important to discuss a little bit what are the requirements that make a video conference work. One is your internet connection. So to have a video conference, you need to have a connection to the internet, except with the case of dial-ins. But it's always useful to make sure that you have a good internet connection. You can verify that using the link that is there, speedtest.com, that will show you how much speed you have. And it's speed in two ways. One is the upload, so how much speed, with what speed you can send information, or what bandwidth you have to send information to the video conference. And the other one is download, so how much information can you receive from the video conference. And Boyd has noted that you will have a better experience if you have 1 megabit of upload speed in order to have good video conference quality. If you are limited in bandwidth, the trick is turn off the camera. When there are issues with the internet, video consumes a lot of bandwidth. So if you want to avoid overloading the video conference, just turn off the camera and just use voice. That will make the conversation a lot easier, the video conference a lot easier for the other participants. We've been having, in one course I'm facilitating, we've been having a participant from the Marshall Islands. And depending on the time of day, she's been able to have video and sound. But at other times, she has just used sound to connect to the video conference. She's still benefiting from the video conference. Just we can't just see her face when she's participating.
One person just asked the question whether the internet speed depends on how many people are in the audience.
Not really. It's more about the individual connection each one has to the internet. That's really important. However, when you have 100 small screens of faces active at the same time, in some computers it won't work very well. And it might be that on your phone you only see one face, the face of the person that's speaking anyway. So it shouldn't be, it shouldn't affect really the connection. It's really about the connection between your individual device and the Zoom server. Now, we've been discussing internet mostly through Wi-Fi connection, through one of your big providers, such as Comcast and others. Another way to participate in the video conference is through your smartphone and through a cellular network. So when you're doing that, you should bear in mind that you are consuming information from your data plan. So depending on the conditions of your plan, you might have limited or unlimited amounts of data that you can use. So again, it might be wiser to not use your webcam when you're on the 4G or 3G network. If you're on a 3G network, definitely avoid using the camera. It probably won't work. If you're on a 4G network, feel free to use the camera, but you're still consuming data from your data plan. So again, for some friends, that might be a consideration. It might be better to turn video off and just dial into the call. So those are the requirements regarding internet connection. Regarding devices, we've covered a number of devices: smartphone, tablets, laptops. They usually have everything you need for a video conference. However, if you have a desktop computer, odds are that you won't have a microphone and won't have a camera on that desktop computer. You need to purchase them separately. So that's a consideration. Microphones and the video cameras, webcams are not expensive nowadays, but it's an extra cost if you have a desktop as your device to participate in the video conference. However, you can still receive, you just can't speak. You can still hear through your speakers, assuming you have speakers on your computer, see through your screen. but you won't be able to talk because you don't have a microphone, and won't be able to share your picture because you don't have a camera, a webcam.
Because then
So-
what they can do is they can call in on their telephone to speak. They can do it that way too.
Yep, so that would be exactly another way to participate. Dial in through your phone so you can share your voice and enjoy the rest of the video conference through your computer. Absolutely. Okay, so do's and don'ts. I think we're over the hour already, so I'll try to go quickly. In terms of preparations for a video conference, it might be wise, especially if it's an important meeting, not a regular run-of-the-mill meeting, to reboot your router. If your browser has tons of tabs, close the extra tabs you don't need for the meeting. Sometimes it really helps, I've noticed, to close the browser, the Chrome or Safari completely, and open it again before the meeting. That helps refresh the connection. It's important to find where you have good internet Wi-Fi coverage within your house. So try to find somewhere rather closer to the router than farther away. Then, as we've mentioned, it's good to download the Zoom or whatever tool you are using before the meeting starts. So maybe 15 minutes before the meeting starts, click on the link, download the tool, make sure you're ready to go. And recommendations during the meeting, using headphones. It can be big ones, such as the one that I'm using, or small ones that just go into your ear. But using headphones will really improve the quality of the conversation. There are lots of issues, especially when the groups are larger. It's very easy to have issues with sounds and echo, reverberation, etc. So using headphones is a very healthy thing to do. It will facilitate the conversation. If you are in a large group, there's a discipline or a new habit to install, which is to mute your microphone when you're not talking. So if someone else is talking, just mute, and when you're ready to talk, just unmute yourself and start talking. This is very useful in larger groups. Then another recommendation is please focus on the conversation. It's easy to get distracted. The internet was possibly designed to create distraction. So, and because we're not face-to-face, we're not close to each other, it's easier to get distracted. So there's an extra effort to make in focusing, and please do that so that everyone has a good time during the video conference. And then there's a possibility to raise your hand. So in different tools, that looks a little different. Just, you can raise your hand physically if you're in a video conference, so people can see that you would like to have a word. Or there are some tools that allow for virtual hand raising. So you can click on a button that says raise your hand, and then people will be notified that you have raised your hand. Again, there's a matter of discipline. It's harder to see people in webcams. If the meeting is large, let's say over 10 people, maybe you don't notice that a hand has been raised. So just remember to try to do as much as possible and to pay attention to who's raising their hand during the meeting. Now, the stuff to avoid, there are two key things. One is, if a TV is on, please mute it. If a radio is on, please turn it down or turn it off, because background noise is usually very distracting. So noise environments are really harmful to good meetings. So please consider either muting the television or turning off the radio before the meeting starts, so that there's a quality of sound for all people involved.
Can you turn off your camera again, Vahid? You've been breaking up a little bit.
Sure. And so the last recommendation I give is that, as I just said, the internet is really good at distracting us. So on the do's, please focus. And on the don'ts, please refrain from doing other stuff while the video conference is ongoing. So that's a suggestion, that's a recommendation I give the family. And so we have more time for question and answers.
Let me
I know we're over
see.
time, but maybe there are questions that we can address.
Yeah, someone just said, what do you do when the sound is bad? Turn off the video. And yeah, the reason is because the video hogs so much of the bandwidth that there's not enough bandwidth for the audio under those circumstances. I don't see any other questions. I don't know, Nikki, did you spot any? Or Boyd? Someone asked how to make these slides in Zoom. And of course, you don't make them in Zoom. You just simply make them in anything you want to make them in, and then you just share your screen. So you could.
Rob, there are some questions in the Q&A too. I can read from Vic.
Yeah.
He says, could you double check the availability of phone access in the free account? My meeting invitations with the free account yesterday did not include any phone numbers, although it did include a link to the page at zoom.us that lists all the phone numbers. The paid account lists the US phone numbers in the meeting invitation.
All right. So let me share my screen quickly. So I am at the address zoom.us/pricing, and you can see the basic free plan. And when you go to video conferencing features,
Join by telephone call in.
yep,
It's there.
so this is the option you're looking for, and it's available on the free plan.
It may very well be that because Zoom has been overwhelmed lately, some of the features haven't been working right. That's a possibility, I suppose.
Yes, that could be a possibility. Also, in the invitation, you remember that I have shared an invitation that I'm ready to send by email. So in that invitation, there's a one-tap mobile number, and the phone number dialed by your location. Okay, so we'd have to look a little bit about what the number is, but then what we do once we've called that number, we just type the number of the meeting ID, and that's how you log into the call via phone. We'd have to do some more searching. I propose we don't do it now, but again, It's a matter of experimenting.
One person says there was a banner at the front page that they warned. Oops, it went away. They warned that the phone in may not be there sometimes, but it is not there now. So it would seem that sometimes that's been coming and going.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom is under tremendous stress right now. They've never had this many video conferences, and this is why trying Jitsi might be a good option. That service is not as overloaded as Zoom is right now. So that's why it might be a good option to try it out at this time.
People keep raising their hands, but I don't know what to do about that. So they're better off typing in the Q&A or the chat box. One person says they just was able to get on. We need to apologize. We saw we were going to have more than 100 people tonight, so we went into Zoom and paid to raise our number to 500, but they didn't activate it in time. Usually these things activate instantly, but in that particular case, they didn't activate it, so we were not able to accommodate more than 100 people at once. The recording will be up on our YouTube channel, and if this happens to you in any of the future meetings, remember you can go to our live Facebook page and watch it there, or go to our YouTube channel page and you can watch it there as well, because we broadcast these things live over both of those services as well. And there, of course, it's an unlimited number of people who can watch. I'm trying to see what else we have here in terms of questions. The chat box, here we go, seems to have reached the end. I don't see any more in the chat box that's worth mentioning here. One new message in the chat box. Place to go for all information on WI Live. We now have on our wilmetinstitute.org page I'm going to turn my camera back on. On our wilmatinstitute.org page, we now have a web page which will have all of the WI Live free events. We'll keep adding them. And of course, we will also post them in our News at a Glance, which comes out usually once a week. We may be doing it a little more often now. But on our Wilmot Institute website, you will find it at wilmotinstitute.org/WI-free, dash or hyphen. So WI-live, LIVE, hyphen, free, FREE. And you can then add a angle slash at the end to indicate that's the end of it. And it's at HTTPS is where our Wilmot Institute site is located. But if you, of course, Google Wilmot Institute, you'll find our wilmotinstitute.org site, and then you can go to WI Live free to find future events. So that's quite easy to find our future events as well. One person here has posted a question. How emails keep coming in and everything just shifted on me. I wasn't able to join at the beginning, so apologize if you covered how to open breakout rooms in Zoom.
Yeah, that's an option that's only available if you have a paid account and would usually be used for larger meetings. What it does is enable you to do small groups. Let's say you have 50 participants and you want to do groups of 5, you can create breakout rooms. That's a more advanced functionality. Again, I haven't used it personally, but I propose we don't cover that today. But it's yeah.
We have lots of people thanking us. Thank you to all the panelists for putting this great and timely webinar together, as this is a new world that we are all in right now. And I think that's a very good summary. I want to thank Vahid, also Boyd Stazuski, who helped ask some of the questions and who also is recording all of this and making sure that we get a very good, clean recording to put up on our YouTube channel. Nikki Daniels also, who's one of our Wilmot Institute staff. She's our registrar, who's also very, very good at the internet and web pages and such. And I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight for this, I think, fascinating discussion. We look forward to seeing you again on probably Saturday and Monday when we do the other 2 webinars about technology. So meanwhile, you can go to communitytech@wilmotinstitute.org if you have any other questions or if you have suggestions for things you'd like to have us cover. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a good evening.